two psychiatrists rapping about our lives and work.
This podcast is not intended to be medical advice. Any stories we use have been altered to protect identities and sensitive information.
This is intended for entertainment purposes only.
You know it!
Ow!
Hey, C.
Hey, T.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Well, I just woke up this morning and thought I'd start a podcast.
Why not, right? What else are we going to do today?
Yeah, you know, we work in kind of a high-stress environment, but it's an interesting environment. We see a lot of interesting cases, and we thought we'd probably sit down and just talk a little bit about what our process is and how we can relate.
Yeah, I think relatability is a big thing, right? I think in like social media and the media in general, they often, portray psychiatrists as either menacing or aloof. And I think, we want to kind of break some of those misconceptions.
Yeah, because we are relatable, and it is...
Are we relatable?
We're going to find out. We are going to find out.
Yeah, and I think, that relatability is something that we do want to show to other people, that we are, just like everyone else, and our job is stressful and enjoyable, and I think we have interesting stories we can share to others, give our perspective, and maybe like little educational pieces along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a chance for us to kind of process what we go through, and if we do have some educational nuggets in there, I think that's all for the good.
So be it.
But this is a casual podcast too.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun.
We're going to have some fun, and we'll have some topics that we will discuss, but they will be somewhat free-flowing, and I think that's important for us to have that flexibility and not make it so structured, so we can kind of just wrap it out.
I like it.
By the way, neither one of us are rappers, right? T, do you have a rap career I don't know about?
Absolutely not.
Me neither. But kind of a funny story about that is my cousin growing up. I grew up as a millennial, right? Like a elder millennial, and so hip hop was very influential. And my cousin got so into writing raps, and he would go to hip hop nights, and I would go with him. And no matter the venue, you really could see like when he was actually pretty good, like people would really get into it, and really kind of, it would just like change the room, and it just kind of showed even them like kind of what conversation or words how they can influence people, and
and music.
Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
So how long you been in this business?
I graduated residency in 2018. So I've been practicing now for about a little over 5 years. Honestly, it's gone so fast. It feels like I just graduated residency like yesterday, but yeah, time flies. How about you?
I graduated from residency in 99, back in the 1900s. So I'm a little bit of a dinosaur. But I've been in the same place since residency, so I've definitely watched the evolution of the center where we work.
Oh, nice. I bet you there's been quite a bit of changes, huh?
You can't even imagine. Space, just the space that we work in has changed 3 major times since I've been working there. And this is the most people that we can see, the most people we can accommodate, but it's still not enough, it feels like, at times.
Yeah, I think even since I've been there, just the expansion and the need for help is really significant. Since you've been there for a little bit of time, since you've been partying since 1999,
that's right.
What have you noticed kind of with like patients? Have they been similar? Have there been big changes in kind of the way people present, or is it?
It's a good question. I feel like, for the most part, the diseases haven't changed. I feel like probably the biggest, increase in people that I see has been in the substance abuse population. We know that substances can affect mood and thoughts, and we will see people who are acutely intoxicated or in withdrawal that will have symptoms that can look like acute psychiatric conditions. And part of our job is to try to sort out which is which. So I definitely see a lot more substance abuse or substance-related disorders see probably the same amount of schizophrenia. Since things changed, we used to have big institutions where people could stay long term and kind of have purpose and meaning on the units where they were. And there was a big push to move all of that to outpatient, which led to a lot of, homeless, mentally ill people. So we do see a lot more homeless people too, I would say, over the years.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that at one point we should talk about like deinstitutionalization and kind of, we may have a different perspective than others about that, but that is kind of a good portion of what we see at times are people that are really, really struggling and down and out. Can't
navigate very well out there.
Yeah.
Resources are scarce or seem to be at times. That's one of my pet. I hope that we can get more resources. I'm sure there are things out there too. It's just like communicating with the forces that be to try to coordinate more services for people.
100%. And you kind of mentioned a little bit ago, like, part of our job is an art, right? Kind of understanding the person, getting to know them, and then figuring out the diagnosis, because one presentation, like let's say psychosis, where someone is losing touch with reality, that can happen for like a multitude of reasons, right? It could be medical, it could be substance induced, it could be like a primary thought disorder, and really that's like the art of our job is kind of figuring that out, and that sounds easy, but it's not.
Because you're seeing a person at one point in time, one point on the graph. So you're trying to extrapolate all of this information and, prognosis and treatment strategy based on one conversation with someone. And sometimes you can get a lot of information out of that one presentation, but sometimes you're just gathering information for the next provider to follow up on. So a lot of times, people come in and they want a diagnosis, and we have to say, well, we're only seeing you, today, and sometimes things change over time. So this is what we're thinking is going on now, and these are the treatments that we would suggest for it. But really, let's watch this over time because the picture might change.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of speaking about this, I'm sure a lot of listeners wonder, like, why would you want to get into a field like this? So T, let me know, what was your inspiration to do this?
I've always been interested in the brain. Like, it's just this amazing organ that we have that we just don't know a lot about. And I thought when I went to medical school that I would be either a neurologist or a neurosurgeon. And so my neurosurgery rotation kind of came along, and I had never even really been in a hospital before that rotation. Fortunately, most of my family, nobody had really been sick, so I hadn't visited anybody in the hospital. I had no reason to go to an ICU, which is where my rotation started. And something about walking into that neurosurgery ICU and seeing what I saw was like, what was I thinking? It was fascinating, though. I mean, I really enjoyed the rotation and watching the surgeons, the precise, locations of their, where they had to go in to fix these really tiny blood vessels and in your eye, whatever. Just amazing. But I figured that probably wasn't for me lifestyle-wise. So then neurology, and then neurology didn't, I noticed that the people were in the hospital all the time, the attendings, and I was like, I want something of a normal social life or family life. And then I did my psychiatry rotation, and those people were fascinating, and they got better. A lot of times with neurological diseases, no matter what you do or how hard you fight, that once that insult happens, that's, the prognosis is not very good.
Yeah, I mean, once you have a stroke, once you have a stroke and kind of lose some of that brain matter, right? Like you can, form new connections, and it's a long road. It can be a real challenge.
But people in psychiatry, or psychiatric patients, a lot of times they just needed somebody to listen to. And I found along the way that I'm a pretty good listener, and was like, this is a great fit. So.
Well,
what about you?
I think you made the right choice, T.
What about you, C?
So, I think I was kind of early on wanting to do psychiatry and mental health. And I remember my parents owned a restaurant when I was younger, and I got to see all kinds of people, like the differences between even the customers and the workers. And my dad, it was a family style restaurant, and he would hire just the most kind of outlandish people.
Yeah.
And so like I was just exposed to a lot, I felt like. And I remember one of my dad's friends was like, whatever you set your mind to in life, like you can do. And so I kind of was always interested in psychology, like even in high school. And one of my best friends in high school had a psychotic break. He was using marijuana, and then he would have all these delusions about religion, and somehow I was involved. And so he like made me some like angel warrior in his dimension, and I was like, well, that sounds really cool, but I'm also like, I don't really know what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And so it kind of like sparked my interest, and he actually went inpatient, and because it was primarily substance induced, he did get a lot better. So I had kind of a really positive perception of that. And then also my dad had a family friend. He was a psychiatrist, and he would come in, and he was just an interesting guy. He would kind of tell me about like his life, and he would just do weird things. Like he would pull out like a flashlight and just start shining it in my eyes. And I would
neurochecks,
right? And even to this day, I have no idea like what he was doing. Like, but he was still a positive influence,
Yeah.
And kind of like you, I actually liked a lot of fields in medicine. Like I almost went just into emergency medicine. But psychiatry always kind of called me back, and I stuck with my initial gut, and it was the right choice for me. So,
I think you made the right choice. See?
Well, thank you. Not that all days are easy, right? But,
right. It's a stressful place to work. We work in an emergency room setting, a psychiatric emergency room, which is a little novel. So the cases that we see are. These people are in crisis. It's the worst day of their life.
Yeah, they're at their wit's end or at the bottom of the barrel, let's say. They're in a really tough place.
We see people who are thinking about hurting themselves, hurting other people, not in touch with reality, maybe have had loss after loss after loss, and they're majorly depressed. But I think what we see the most is probably anxiety. And certainly since COVID,
yes,
that just spiked through the roof.
And I think one good thing maybe for the podcast is, moving forward is, we see everything. And that in that emergency setting, we literally see
everything.
Yes, from the youngest to the oldest, from the most sort of housewife, I got to have my wine and my anxiety pill, or severe psychosis, or someone who's severely suicidal. And so we run the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe hopefully that perspective will come out in this podcast of allowing us to kind of share those things, and hopefully the listener will find it interesting,
And how we process things, because, to do this work, you have to be able to have reserves on hand to deal with some of these heartbreaking stories that we have, children who are being abused, and unfortunately, because there is no other option, are going back into these same situations. How do you manage that? So just talking about really like how we process things too, the limitations of what we can do, really the hope that we can bring people just to know that they're not alone, that there are people who can listen and try to help them, I think makes a big difference. Even if we can't fix the problem. And it's not really our job to fix things. Maybe our job to point out to people where they can fix or change. But you have to be aware of things to even know to make a change. So part of what we do, I think, is raising awareness as to what's going on, what we see, give them feedback that they can use to help themselves grow.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective on that. Is it's true. It's kind of, we do kind of steer people in the right direction, right? Like one of the main things we have to decide is whether someone needs to come into the hospital or not, right? And if not, like the resources in the community. Sometimes that's even hard for us, right? Is knowing all the resources that are out there. But I think we try to do the best we can, and we are a listening ear, and we can help provide that kind of help and service. So
I think being present for people and in our lives, having people that are present for us and being present for other people, I think that really helps a lot to just sort of help carry people's burden so they don't have to carry it alone.
Yeah, you kind of sense that, right, when you go into the room and they know that you're actually listening and that you build rapport, and then you can see the walls come down to some degree. And we all need that in our lives. We all need that support. And so that, I think, is sometimes the beauty of our job. But then also when you're working a 12-hour shift and you've been doing that for 12 hours, it's also tough, right?
Yes, yes. We work with amazing people. All of our the other physicians, there are nurse practitioners, there are physician assistants, nurses, technicians. We have an amazing team of people that are all there to try to help guide people, support people, be present with people, and for each other. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do, and hopefully what we will accomplish with the podcast. And we're glad you're here.
Yes, we're very glad you're here. And hopefully from this, we will all have a little fun and learn a little something.
That's the goal.